February 13th, 1943. Northern Burma. The jungle breathes like a living thing, wet, heavy, endless. Every step sinks into mud that swallows boots and sound alike. Rain hasn't stopped in days. Lee Enfield rifles glisten under a shroud of mist, and the men carrying them are shadows, half-starved, mosquito-bitten, and already a little lost. They are the Chindits, a new kind of army, born from one man's obsession. Brigadier Ord Wingate, a bearded eccentric with Bible verses in his orders and madness in his eyes, has convinced the British High Command to send him deep behind Japanese lines. His plan is simple and suicidal. March a brigade through 1,000 miles of jungle to harass the enemy, cut railways, and vanish again into the green. Wingate called it long-range penetration. The men called it Wingate's folly. To the north, the Japanese 18th Division rules Burma with ruthless precision. Their supply lines stretch thin, but they are disciplined, masters of jungle warfare. The British have been driven out of Burma once already. Now they want revenge, but not in open battle. This time, they'll strike from the shadows. From the air, Dakotas drop supply canisters into clearings hacked out of the trees. Each descent is a gamble. Wind, rain, or a single misread signal can scatter rations into enemy hands. The men curse the weight of their packs. 60 pounds of ammunition, rice, quinine, and hope. Daylight burns white through the canopy. Leeches cling to skin. Malaria gnaws at the weak, and the air tastes of iron and rot. Every cough could mean infection. Every footprint could mean discovery. By night, they wade through black water, rifles held above their heads. The jungle never sleeps. It hums, clicks, and screams. Then, on the banks of the Irrawaddy River, the mission truly begins. The Chindits cross on makeshift rafts, pushing silently through mist that hides both enemy patrols and crocodile eyes. On the far side lies the unknown, Japanese territory. They cut telegraph lines. They blow up a rail bridge at Bonchong, sparks lighting up the jungle like lightning trapped in wood. For the first time in months, Britain strikes back in Burma. But victory has a cost. The wounded cannot be carried through the terrain. Wingate's orders are clear. Leave them behind. Men whisper prayers before injecting morphine into their comrades' arms. Silence follows, broken only by rain. This is not the war Europe knows. No tanks, no front lines, no glory. Only jungle, disease, and a commander who believes suffering is proof of purpose. As the monsoon thickens, maps dissolve into pulp, and compasses spin uselessly under the canopy. The Chindits disappear into the wilderness and into history. By March 1943, the Chindits were ghosts moving through the heart of enemy territory. The jungle closed behind them, like a wound that would never heal. Paths vanished. Landmarks drowned in mist. Wingate's columns, once unified, splintered into scattered fragments, each fighting its own private war against nature, hunger, and the unseen enemy. They lived on half rations, then quarter. Rice turned moldy in the damp. Salt was gone, sugar gone, tobacco gone. Their uniforms clung to their skin like rotting bandages. Men spoke less and less. Every word cost energy. Every breath drew the buzzing attention of flies. Malaria struck first, then dysentery, then the fever they called the jungle madness. Some men stared into the trees for hours, swearing they saw faces. Others forgot their own names. Still, the Japanese came. Patrols prowled the trails, barefoot and silent. Their ambushes were fast, a burst of fire, a shout, and then the jungle swallowed the sound. The Chindits moved by night, guided by Wingate's ruthless will. His orders were biblical and bizarre. The army that walks with faith need not fear the wilderness. To his men, it felt like prophecy or delusion. But his voice carried conviction, and conviction was the last thing keeping them alive. At the town of Pinlabu, one column struck a Japanese garrison by surprise. Grenades rolled into bunkers. Rifles cracked through palm fronds. When the smoke cleared, the British found crates of rice and ammunition, the first food they'd seen in days. They ate it raw, hands trembling, faces streaked with sweat and rain. But victory meant exposure. Japanese aircraft found their trail, strafing the treetops. The jungle exploded in shards of wood and blood. Wingate ordered an immediate withdrawal, deeper into the green, deeper into hell. Soon, communication between columns broke entirely. Wireless operators died. Radios drowned in rain. Wingate, separated from his main force, wandered for weeks, scribbling mad notes about endurance and divine mission. His men followed him because there was nothing else to follow. At Nangkan, one group tried to build a landing zone for air evacuation. They cleared a space barely large enough for a small plane, marking it with parachute silk. But the air crews never found it. Clouds too thick, visibility zero. The wounded lay in rows under ponchos, staring up at a sky that would never deliver them. By April, food was gone. Some boiled belts for the leather. Others shot pack mules and wept as they ate. The jungle stank of decay, bodies half buried, fever-slick men crawling through mud that felt alive. And yet, even then, discipline held. When Japanese troops surrounded one column near the Shuili River, the Chindits didn't surrender. They formed a defensive ring in the bamboo, fought for 3 days, and slipped out at night through a gap barely wide enough for one man. They left the dead behind. They always did. By May, Wingate's grand vision had become a nightmare of hunger and exhaustion. Thousands of men were missing, hundreds already dead. But still, some moved onward, step by step, into a jungle that seemed determined to erase every trace of them. May 1943, somewhere near the Shuili River. The jungle is no longer an obstacle, it's a prison. The Chindits no longer march. They crawl. Wingate's columns are scattered across hundreds of miles. Compass bearings are guesses. The maps are useless. Rivers twist like serpents, and trails end in nothing. One group, led by Major Bernard Ferguson, finds itself trapped between flooded ravines and Japanese patrols. They move by instinct, by the direction of light filtering through the canopy. North, Ferguson says, though north no longer means home, only survival. Rain falls in curtains, blurring sound, blinding vision. Each drop feels like a whisper from the jungle itself. Turn back, but there is no back, only forward. Men stumble through waist-deep swamps, their skin white with rot. Leeches hang from ankles. Insects crawl into wounds. At night, they lie awake, listening to the low hum of enemy voices or imagining them. Sleep brings dreams of food, of open sky, of anything that isn't green. Every day, someone collapses. Some get up again, some don't. The living step around them, too weak to dig graves. The dead vanish beneath the ferns by morning. When they reach the Irrawaddy River again, it's in flood, a mile of swirling brown death. The men stare at it in silence. They must cross or die where they stand. So they lash together bamboo rafts, patch them with ponchos, and push off into the current. The first raft overturns instantly. 2 men disappear without a sound. A third clings to a log, eyes wide with terror as he drifts away, swallowed by the storm. Ferguson makes it across with half his strength gone. His column is now fewer than 100. They are miles behind enemy lines, with no supplies, no radio, and no Wingate. Further south, another group under Major Gilkis fights its way through a Japanese-held valley. Outnumbered, starving, they rely on the jungle itself, snaring snakes, stealing rice from villages, drinking from puddles. When the Japanese find them, Gilkes orders his men to scatter, not to fight, not to hold, just to vanish. And they do. By June, the Chindit expedition is no longer an army. It's fragments of men drifting through the Burmese wilderness, hunted and forgotten. Some are rescued by Kachin tribesmen, silent mountain warriors who lead them through secret trails. Others reach Chinese lines after weeks of delirium, walking barefoot, clutching rifles with no ammunition left. The monsoon has turned the jungle into a nightmare of noise and mud. Thunder rolls through the trees like artillery. Everything smells of mold, blood, and rot. The air itself feels alive, heavy, suffocating. Wingate himself finally emerges in India, gaunt, feverish, and half insane. Of the 3,000 men he led into Burma, barely 2/3 return. Most are too sick to walk. Many never recover. The British call it Operation Longcloth. The soldiers call it something else. The march that should never have happened. June 1943. Imphal, India. The first survivors stumble out of the jungle barefoot, faces sunken, eyes hollow. They look less like soldiers and more like men returned from the dead. Flies follow them into camp. Their uniforms are shredded, rifles rusted solid. Some can barely speak. Others collapse before saying a word. Medical officers record the same words over and over. Malaria, dysentery, exhaustion. But those don't capture what's missing. Something in these men has been left behind, somewhere in the green. One Chindit, Private Ernest Nichols, can only whisper, "We kept walking," over and over. No one knows how far. No one counts anymore. Wingate is airlifted to Delhi for debriefing. He steps off the plane barefoot, wrapped in a blanket, beard tangled, still clutching a walking stick he carved from bamboo. He tells the press it was a great success, the first time Japanese forces had been seriously harassed behind their own lines. His superiors nod politely. They know the truth. For every bridge destroyed, 100 men were lost. But Wingate refuses to apologize. "We have proved it can be done," he insists. "We can live in the jungle. We can fight in the enemy's country." The room is silent. Behind the numbers and maps lies something they can't put in a report. The smell of death still clinging to his clothes. In hospitals across India, what's left of the Chindits lies under mosquito nets, sweating through fever dreams. The doctors cut off their boots, soaked through and fused to rotting skin. Bones show through. Their hair comes out in handfuls. Many are too weak to eat. Yet even here stories spread. Of courage in madness, of patrols that vanished for weeks and returned with enemy flags, of men who shared their last drops of quinine or their last spoon of rice. Wingate's Chindits become legend, even as most of them can barely lift their heads. Still, the world barely notices. In Europe, Stalingrad has just fallen. Rommel has been defeated in North Africa. The headlines belong to other men, other victories. Burma is a footnote, a faraway nightmare at the edge of empire. By autumn, Wingate is already planning another expedition. Larger, better supplied, even deeper into enemy territory. Some of the men volunteer again. Others refuse to speak his name. Those who survived will never forget the sound of the jungle. The hiss of rain on palm leaves, the hum of insects in the dark, the silence of men dying without a shot fired. For them, the war didn't end with the jungle. It stayed under their skin, in their dreams, in the way they flinched at rain. When the British finally retake Burma 2 years later, the Chindits are mentioned only briefly in the reports. Preliminary operations that informed later strategy. No medals for the dead. No parades for the vanished. Just an empty silence where 3,000 men once walked into the green, and only a few hundred walked out. When history speaks of Burma, it remembers the generals, the offensives, the maps, but the jungle remembers the others, the ones who disappeared without a trace. the army that vanished.